Hello, welcome back to another episode. I have made a lot of things from scratch, but I draw the line at louvres. Well, that ended up to be total. Welcome back. I am fed up of waiting for the angled aluminium plate that I need to continue with this. So I'm going to simply make it. It'll be out of 1.2mm rather than 1.5. But the thinner the better, it'll save some weight. Welcome back to another voiceover. I haven't done one for quite some time. I think the last one I did was when I was making the bodywork and doing all the filling. So I just thought I'd talk you through the process of making these custom parts, sort of how long it takes, all the steps, and my general thought process while I'm doing the job. So at the moment I'm taking the polycarbonate section off, so this polycarbonate piece will be white eventually. So the reason I'm taking it off is because the fins are going to be riveted to the aluminium piece that still has the grey plastic sheet on underneath. So the fins will be riveted to that. So what I need to do now is make a couple of brackets to hold it all together while the polycarbonate is off the car. As I am doing the build process, I am not filming the left side of the car much at all, but what I generally do is I'll do a small section on the right side, film it, and then do exactly the same on the left. As I'm going along, I'll do that without getting too far ahead, so it's easy to make everything exactly the same and all the measurements and everything are fresh in my mind. It's just a lot easier to work that way. So what I'm doing now is I've just made a measuring piece of cardboard with evenly distributed fin marks. So I'm just going to mark it out, and then I can fine tune the accuracy of leveling out the fins. So on this job I need to try and get the fins looking fairly symmetrical from the back, the side and the top. There's no real straight lines on any of it, so it's a lot of trial and error and just going by eye. So now I'm making the CAD brackets, so it's a lot quicker to make cardboard brackets and then I can just replicate it in aluminium. So I'm using as little material as I can to try and save some weight along the way. I want to try and make it look aesthetically pleasing as I can, so as I'm going along I'm trying to figure out which direction to rivet in, so which side you'll see the head of the rivet and the crushed part. So now I'm deburring all of the brackets. This technique is a lot quicker than a file, so I'm just going over with a pair of side cutters. Needless to say, they're not very sharp anymore. Now I am bending the brackets, just doing it by hand. It's only 1.2mm sheet, so you can do it by hand quite easily. So I have, I can't remember how many now, 18 or so. Get a bit more purchase up against the back of the workbench. They don't have to be super accurate, as long as they're roughly bent halfway along, that's fine. So next up, I am going over the fins. I am going over with sandpaper so paint will stick to it much easier. And then once I've sanded each one, I will label them. So you should see in a moment that I am writing the orientation, so which is the outside, which is up, and which number it is. This just saves a lot of confusion. I could probably work it out piece by piece with no writing on it at all, but it saves me a lot of time. So next up, I'm drilling the holes to put the brackets on the polycarbonate. They want to be roughly in the middle of each piece. Now I'm going over the aluminium plate with the sandpaper for the same reasons of doing the fins. Makes it a lot easier to do it now than trying to get in all the gaps between the fins later on. Next up, I'm taking the protective sheet off the back of the aluminium plate, so when I put the rivets on through the plate, then it's not catching the protective sheet in between the rivet and the aluminium. It's quite tough stuff, this. So what I'm doing is on the outside, the head, the top part of the fin along the top is just got to line up roughly with the marks that I did earlier on, and then I can level the fins up accordingly. Each one I'm going over with an 8mm drill bit, just so the aluminium rivet can sink slightly in, so it's a bit more of a flush fit. I did have some countersunk rivets, but I'm not quite sure where they went, so I'm using normal dome head. As you can see, it's quite a long, painstaking process, but I think overall when it's done it should look quite good. Now I have them all on, I am marking up which ones need to be trimmed slightly more, because I want it to be perfectly straight down the outside, or as near as straight as possible within reason. You see it slightly bowed out on the right hand side. So now I can drill the rivets out, take it out. Takes a bit of working because everything's so tight fitting and snug. So yeah, it takes a minute or two. And then I can just grind them down a bit more until I think they're somewhere near and test fit it again. You have to be careful when using a grinder on polycarbonate as not to dig in. It's quite soft and easy to work, so you just got to be really gentle. Test fit number 2. Already it's looking better. I think I took it off 2 or 3 times on each side to get it as good as I needed it. Just helps it all hold together a bit better. So now I'm trying to mark out where I need to rivet the brackets on the inside. So I need to get each one in line and mark it with a pen down the front of each fin, so then I can take it all apart and then rivet the brackets to the inside piece. That's why the piece that I'm drilling out now is in 3 parts, so the inner skin can be riveted from the outside in. So now I am just burring or deburring the brackets that I've cut for the inside. In order to get the brackets on the top 5 fins, I need to drill them out because I have no room to get the drill directly on the inside because they're slatted down inside each other. So I'm taking the top 5 out to then put the brackets on, and then I can put them back on. Same process for these brackets. I do have to bend them slightly on the one side sort of under 90 degrees and on the outside over 90 degrees because of the shape isn't perfectly parallel. There's a slight sort of angle from each other, so I pre-bend the brackets before I put them on just to make it easier. Each one I countersink. So the polycarbonate is 5mm, so the rivet can flush fit even though it's a dome head. So now is a case of just meeting the marks that I made earlier on, and then one by one riveting them to the plate. The top 5 all very similar, so I can kind of do them in a batch. But as I get further down the vent, then they get a bit more complicated, there's less room and there are more angles to work with. So when I get further down there, I just do them individually. So it takes a bit of jiggling around to get it somewhere near. But the first couple is to get it as close as possible, really, to keep it all in a line by the time you get to the bottom. Having the brackets tight up against the plate makes a good join, so I'm just using those pliers there to clamp it together while I put the rivet in. So that's one side done. Now I've got the one made up, I can kind of mirror the other side to that, so I can kind of copy the angles of the vents to make them sort of look the same when they're either side. So as you can see, I've just basically clamped the one up to the other, and it makes the process a lot easier. So as I said before, I'm just mirroring the process, so I'm taking the inner plate out, and that's the passenger side. Now these have taken the best part of a week on and off to complete. I think it'll be worth it for the overall look of the car. When they're painted black with a black mesh and they're on the bumper, they should look quite good. I left the self tapper in the corner, which I couldn't get out, so hence the struggle. Now I guess we're going to find out how awkward this is to fit. Once the rear quarters are on, then I can make any final adjustments to this area around here to make it fit even better. My main concern was the way the bumper ties into this part of the bodywork. I think this is a good compromise and transition from the front to the back. As always, thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next week.